A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Aftab Ahmed and you're watching Flashpoint, the program that deals with issues, dilemmas and situations that concern the Muslim community in the UK and Europe. Topics, as you know, are such on this program that they require, in fact, they insist on your participation. And today we have no less of a topic. This should have been last week's program, but because of the International Seerth Conference last week, I have postponed it to this week. But the topic is, I can't use the word evergreen, but it's a topic that cannot go away. So time is not that important as much as the fact that it must be aired and it must be thoroughly vetted by the Muslim community. The topic today is Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, and the cartoon that depicted him, where he is seen to be a bricklayer laying the foundations of a wall with the blood of the Palestinians as the cement. The cartoon will come up on the screen in a few moments if you haven't seen it, and then you will know what I'm talking about. Now, the point is that Netanyahu can look at a cartoon of himself and be so angry that his whole nation, the nation of Israel, follows suit with him. If you look at the cartoon, you can see that there's bodies in there, there's limbs in there of the Palestinian people. Yet, it's offensive to Jews. It's anti-Semitic. On the other hand, and this is where the program takes the turn that I want you to understand, and I want you to help me and be with me on this topic. When a cartoon of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, is depicted in the most vilest way, then it's free speech. Be it in Denmark, Norway, Britain, France, anywhere in the world, then it's free speech. Is that free speech? Isn't this free speech with the Netanyahu cartoon? Why is it that a cartoon depicting a prime minister of a country that is killing Palestinians, that has built a wall around Israel between Palestinians and the Israeli border, a prime minister hell-bent on subjugating the Palestinian community, when that cartoon is depicted, then the world is shocked. Rupert Murdoch, the owner of News International, apologized to the Jewish community for causing hurt and emotional upset. The cartoon was withdrawn from papers. Is this justified? On the other hand, the most degrading cartoons of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, who has between 2.4 and 2.8 billion Muslims the world over, is not considered offensive to 2.4 to 2.8 billion Muslims. Whereas a cartoon depicting Netanyahu is offensive to 2 to 3 million Jews. I really am at a loss for words at the double standards that are prevailing in our society today. I am appalled that the very nations, the very countries which uphold free speech, the very newspaper which has never apologized, even for the phone hacking, has apologized to the Jewish community for causing them hurt and grief. And I believe that it's the fault of the Muslim community the world over, because they have not made a stance, they have not made a stand, they have not created a reputation, if I can use that word, for themselves, where people respect Muslims, where people understand Muslims, where people are also concerned about the well-being, the hurt, the emotional upset and degradation of Islam and Muslims. If you feel the same way as I do, today's your chance. Ring in, tell me how you feel, because this program is a program that will be watched many times over by many different nations. And your participation in this program is of the utmost vital importance. I'm flabbergasted that the word anti-Semitic, which means against the Jewish people, can be used so freely and so quickly because a prime minister has been depicted. And I, for one, stand against the curtailing of free speech. But free speech comes with a responsibility. And that responsibility is not just for Muslims or for anti-Muslims. It's for everyone. Be you Jewish, non-Jewish, Muslim, non-Muslim, Christian, Hindu, Sikh, whoever you are, free speech comes with responsibility. Why is it then that free speech for Jewish people comes with responsibility and for nobody else? There were burnings, there's bombings, there's bloodshed across the east, I should say, are the depiction of degrading cartoons of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. But they weren't considered bad or nasty or inappropriate by the West. Every news agency, every politician, and every thinking person said, free speech. One must not be allowed to avert free speech. Well, if that's the case, what happened in this case? What happened in this scenario? Where did free speech go then? What happened to free speech then? Why were those phrases, why were those words suddenly omitted from the vocabulary? Why did Rupert Murdoch apologize? Apologize for what? For causing hurt and grief to 3 million Jews maximum. Now, let me qualify this. I have no gripe or problem with the Jewish community. I'm in no way putting them down. I'm in no way saying that they shouldn't be given protection. What I am saying is that that protection should go across the board. Shouldn't be just for one community. And this is where the Muslim community falls down. Because we, in our normal, average lives, have not come forward and become involved in our communities in this society. And that's the only reason why Muslims are set outside, if I can use those words, the boundaries of today's society. Take the UK, for example. There are at least 2 million Muslims in the UK. How many can you name as prominent Muslims in the UK? We have a number of MPs, very few. Maybe one woman who is recognized, well known, out of 2 million. Now look at the Jewish community. 200,000 to 300,000, not million, 2 to 300,000 in the UK. We look at their achievements. Which part or which walk of life are they not involved in the UK and Europe and the world? Finance? Media? Arts? Science? Technology? Because that nation took the trouble to look to its future, to plan its future. And I'm not talking about sitting down with pen and paper and writing down this and that, the other, even though they did have an agenda for the UK where one child was directed towards medicine, the second one towards the second one towards law, and third one towards art, and then subsequently if the other children, different walks of life. This was the pattern after the Second World War in the UK, laid down by the Jewish community, and it was adhered to. And 50, 60 years later, look at the map of the UK for professions and for inclusion in the British way of life. We too have been here since the 60s, 50s even. There's the 5th generation in the UK now. How many footballers have we got? Sports people have we got? World renowned, recognized. You count them on the fingers of your hands. One hand. How many TV personalities, reporters have we got that can be recognized in the UK by the ordinary British person? That's where we fall down. Everybody's working as an individual for themselves. There is no collective There is no thought process for the future generations. I'm not here admonishing you for your lack of insight, because that's not my job, and I'm no way that grand to tell people what to do. But I am complaining about the fact that the Muslim community has within its folds brilliant minds, brilliant lawyers, brilliant doctors, artists, sports people, and they're all being, horrible word, wasted, because there is no collective way forward. Now, are we going to change this trend? Can this trend be changed? If it can, tell me how. Because your views will determine other people, or could determine other people's insights into their lives and their futures. How do you think we can be involved in the life in the UK and be considered as ordinary British Muslim citizens? The colour of our skin should not in any way be a detriment to our futures. If it is, it's because we make it so. Why is it that the Muslim community has no voice? I'm talking about the world, now the whole world. When a cartoon of the Holy Prophet is depicted, that not only upsets Muslims, but strikes at the very root of their faith, the heart of their faith. Why is there no voice? Why is there no noise? Why is there no uproar that the West notices? There has to be a reason. And the reason has to be that we still consider ourselves as outsiders. We still consider ourselves as foreigners. Because if we didn't, we have as much right as any other community to have our sense and sensibilities cared for by the state. And if they're not, it's because we haven't come forward to let the government and the people of the UK know what we stand for, who we are, what our parameters are. Islam is the favored religion of Allah. The Quran says so. Yet, Islam, and more to the point, Muslims are regarded as pariahs. At the same time, Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. It's documented and stated quite frequently that in 20 years' time, if the growth of Islam stays at this rate in the West, then there will be more Muslims in America than there are Christians in about 20 years' time. But isn't it a shame though? The fastest growing religion on earth no voice. How's that possible? How is that possible? That a whole nation has a 2.8, some say 2.4 billion Muslims without a voice? One Jewish prime minister and the whole nation rises up to save face, to save their nation's blushes. And let's face it, the cover-up, the PR that the Jewish community is responsible for is the root cause of the Palestinians' lot in life and the view that the West has of the Palestinians and the Jewish community. As I said before, the Jewish community is working the way it should. It's protecting itself, it's protecting its religion, and it's protecting its good name. Why can't we do that? Are we that far away from each other? Are we that self-centered? Or are we just careless? That strikes me to be the better reason. That we are so absorbed in our own lives that we are not looking to the greater good. We're not altruistic. We're all being self-centered. And today's program is to bring home to you that if we try as a nation to amalgamate, I don't like the word integrate because people use wrong connotations with it. If we put the best things forward from our community into the British way of life, for heaven's sake, chicken tikka masala is the favorite dish of the UK. Is that our recognition? That we're the nation that gave UK chicken tikka masala? How we know their achievements? Because our best achievement, the achievement that has come down with us through the ages, for 1400 years, from the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, is akhlaq. And if we are not using akhlaq to our best advantage, then we are the losers. Then we are the people who deserve our lot in life. Because akhlaq teaches us, number one and foremost, how to deal with others in the best possible way. So therefore, we are not being the way we should be with others. That's why they don't recognize us. That's why there is such a gap between us and, if I can use the word, them. Them being ordinary British people, ordinary European people, ordinary people the world over. There is so much ignorance about our way of life, our culture, and of course our religion, that we are considered as outsiders. Yet, Where did chemistry come from? Where did algebra come from? Where did medicine come from? Where did surgery come from? Where did astronomy come from? Where did geography? All the sciences, all the different knowledges, they came from the East. And the Holy Prophet said, peace be upon him, that ilm or knowledge is our heritage. It's the heritage of Muslims. And to gain knowledge, one should even go to China if one has to. In other words, at that time, China was one of the far-flung empires from the Middle East. So to gain knowledge, go even as far as China, but with ikhlaq. So wherever you go, people recognize you for who you are. And if they recognize you for who you are, they will then treat you with respect, with honor, and dignity. And those are the three fundamentals of any race, human being, or person. Why is it then that we have everything, but when it comes to dignity of Muslims, dignity of Islam, the sanctity of Allah and the Holy Prophet, we are lacking? And we are the ones who are looking at the world in a shocked way. When is it going to change? How is it going to change? Who's going to change it? That's the job. That's the task. And that is the basic need of today. That is the task that this generation has, to give an inheritance to future generations, so that they are not subjected in the same way that we are to Islamophobia, to our culture. Why is it that a semi-literate person like myself has to sit in front of a TV camera and ask these questions of a nation whose heritage from the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, is knowledge, is ikhlaq? Are we so divided amongst ourselves? Are we so intent on our skirmishes amongst ourselves that the bigger picture outside is not visible to us? Are we that engrossed in putting each other down? Shias to Sunni, Sunni to Wahhabi, Wahhabi to some other sect, and all round again. That we're not looking to the future that should be ours, just like it is for everybody else. I honestly believe that if the Muslim community, with all its faults, all its drawbacks, all its internal squabbles and skirmishes and hates and likes and dislikes, if it rises above all this, then the world would be a better place. Because then Muslims are contributing to the future that every other nation is looking to. Is that a fair assessment? Do you think Muslims should be part of the near future, the long-term goal for the whole of the world? Because we live in an ecosystem. We live in a world where cultures, religions, dogmas, philosophies, doctrines all come together. And if the biggest religion on earth, one of the biggest religions on earth, cannot be part of that world, cannot be a fully paid member, as they say, of this world, then there has to be something wrong somewhere. The leadership in our countries, excuse me a moment, be it any country, has never spoken. When prophets, the holy prophets, images, derogatory images are depicted, but be it film, be it a cartoon, be it a joke, be it a book, it's always the people who rise up and ask the question why. Never our governments, never our leaders, never the kings and the dictators. Why? All these questions need answers. But the answers don't have to be big. They don't have to come from somewhere out there in the universe. The answers are here, right under your nose. We as individuals have to begin to think collectively. I am not in any way advocating any sects. I'm not advocating in any way underground movements. I'm not advocating in any way anarchy or no-go areas. All I'm saying is that wherever there are Muslims, they should, through their ikhlaq, through their dealings with the people, show that they are part of this community. And as you know, this cartoon of Netanyahu and the Palestinian strife has brought home, I should have brought home to Muslims, the difference between them and other communities. The power, the strength, the voice that other communities have compared to Muslims. Can you imagine? Can you imagine any government, any newspaper, any magazine, any author apologizing to Muslims? Well, the people who drew this cartoon, the people who published this cartoon of Netanyahu, apologized. Now, the Jews did not hold guns in their hands. They didn't use bazookas. They didn't have grenades. They didn't put a gun to Rupert Murdoch's head and said, "You will apologize." It's because of their interaction within the community, their influence in the community. And influence comes through perseverance, through self-betterment, involvement, and living a life that is for the common good. Being involved in all institutions of society. That's the way forward. Why is it then that in the national health there is a huge percentage of doctors who are Muslims? In the workforce, there's a huge number of Muslims. In the legal profession, there's a very large number of Muslims. And so on. Even the corner shops in this country, petrol stations. Do you know if Muslims did not open their shops on a Sunday morning, there'd be no bread and milk for this community to have breakfast with every Sunday. I've got a caller, let's take a call and see who it is. Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. I'm speaking from Glasgow.
Okay.
Today you were talking about cartoon and you were talking about cartoons, and I want to ask you that in the UK, one question, that in the UK there is a vote for homosexual marriage, and Muslims gave their vote for that. So I want to ask you, what are your comments that Muslim people are giving votes for something that is not in Islam? Because 5 Muslim MPs they gave their vote for homosexual marriage. So my question is, what are your comments? Thank you.
I'm very sorry. I did not understand a word of what you said, caller. Please forgive me. I know you said something about the question, but I don't know what you said. I could not make a word of it. Please, if you can, call back again. But thank you for your call. This program is usually inundated with calls. We have calls waiting, and the switchboard gets jammed. But look at today. No calls. You know why? Because today I'm asking you to step out of your comfortable sphere. I'm asking you to step out of your comfortable little lives. I'm asking you to step out of yourselves and be the people you should be. What are you doing? You're not even picking the phone up. Yet I know each and every one of you feels what I'm saying. I know each and every one of you agrees with what I'm saying, but you haven't got the courage to come on air and say, you know why? Because you don't feel part of the community. You feel that if you voice your opinions, maybe something bad might happen. Maybe people might get the wrong impression of you. Maybe people might think you are troublemakers or whatever you are. But I will tell you something. Until you say what's on your mind, until you speak the truth, until you let people know how you feel, this is the way Muslims will be throughout the coming generations. On the outside looking in, rather than on the inside looking out. I know what I would like to be. I know where I am. It's one of those things that one has to gear themselves up for. It's not difficult. You're not a martyr. You're not going out there to fight. You're not going out there to make a point. You live your own life in such a way that people recognize you for who you are, for your values, for your honesty, for your truth, for your very self. When they can recognize that, then when you speak, they will know. They have to listen, because the person who is speaking can't be faulted, because that person is part of this community. If, on the other hand, you expect other people always to stand up for you, which is the case in our community, we expect things will be done for us. All we say, and a very, very common phrase in our society is, well, won't make any difference, will it? I can't make a difference. Besides which, it's not my country, is it? But it is your country. Because you were born here, because you live here, because you've been naturalized here. You pay the taxes here. You feel comfortable here. And in many, many, many cases, this is the only country you know. So why is it then that you feel uncomfortable? I've never seen a law in this country which says whites or Christians and Jews, this law is for them and here's a law for the Muslims. I've never seen that. I've never seen a rule or a regulation or a law or a bylaw which puts Muslims second. Muslims put themselves second because they don't get involved. So where does that lead us? Where does that leave us? Do you realize that your children, our children, have an uphill struggle through their lives, first to get themselves recognized, then to achieve, then to be equal, and then to be part of society? That's a huge burden on any child. And these are the jobs we should have done years ago. I've never blamed the first generation. I've never in any way thought that they've done us a disservice, because the first generation is probably the most successful generation we've ever had in Europe. Because our forefathers came here as complete immigrants who had no knowledge whatsoever of this society, of the way of life here, even of the weather. They overcame all the obstacles. They didn't get involved. They didn't become part of society, but they did their job, which was to make a life that's better for their families and for themselves. And they achieved that tremendously. It's the generations who came after who got the comfort, who felt the benefits of their forefathers' work in this country, but who didn't carry it on. My request to everyone is that we have to work as a community. We have to work as a nation, because depictions of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, parodies of the Holy Quran, book burning, Quran burning is acceptable by the West, because the Muslim reaction is fragmented. If the West realized that Islam is a nation and they will react as a nation, then free speech would come with responsibility for Muslims as well, not just for Jews or other nations, but for Islam and Muslims as well. My request to everyone is, look to your future. Are you happy? Are you content with the way things are? Excuse me a moment. Do you feel that what you're achieving, what you're doing, the way you are living, your interaction with the host nation is adequate? Or could it be bettered? I honestly believe that if Muslims came forward with their true ikhlaq, if they led with ikhlaq, then the world would be a different place. There'd be no ignorance regarding Muslims. There'd be no ambiguity regarding the values of Muslim that Muslims have for themselves and for others. It's because we are not involved, because of our quiet leadership and our quiet voice or no voice, that people are drawing their own conclusions about Islam and Muslims. Hence Islamophobia. It's about time that Muslims intelligently, collectively, intellectually, peacefully, and with knowledge faced up to the dilemma that faced the Muslim community, which is to be recognized and to be part of the society. There is no barrier that I can see that can't be surpassed, that can't be overcome. There is no barrier which I feel that cannot be broken except ignorance. Ignorance is the barrier that cannot be removed without knowledge, without courage, without perseverance, and without, above all, without involvement. Ignorance about Muslims, ignorance about Islam, ignorance about our way of life, put them all together, Islamophobia. Dissect them one by one. The house of Islamophobia falls. Islam emerges. People have a better understanding of who you are, who I am, who we are. And therefore, knowledge, our heritage, as ordained by the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, comes to the front. And then we are seen as a people of respect, of knowledge, of vision, of tolerance, and above all, a people that is society. We don't have to follow society. Society will follow us. We are part of that society. We can change society to the way we want, the way it's comfortable for us. It starts in the home. It starts in our very homes, with our children, with our families. Once we can teach our children, show our children what Islam is, who we are, and how to face the world outside, the next generation will have a life that's 100 times easier and better and more fulfilling than the lives that we lead. I use the Netanyahu cartoon as an example to show power in some circles and the lack in the other. Use this cartoon and other depictions like it to give yourself a momentum, an energy that says to you, I will not tolerate or stand to be second best. Excuse me. Because it's your right to be the best. And to be the best, you have to show that you are the best. And that is the answer. And that is the way forward. Show people that you are the best. And everything will fall into place. If you can show that, you are showing Islam. And when the world sees Islam, everything else will fall behind. Flashpoint has come to an end. I've done this program in English all the way through today because I wanted the younger generation to be involved with me. I know that if I'd done this program in Urdu, there would have been so many calls, so many people would have taken part, but that would not have been the way forward. So my apologies for my Urdu viewers. Inshallah, next week I'll do a similar program in Urdu and then wait to hear from you at that time. Until then, until next week, same place, same program, same Aftab Ahmed. Khuda Hafiz.